Welcome to our new video series, A Beginner's Guide for Brands. What is embedded finance? In this video series, powered by Finastra, we speak to a series of experts to take a closer look at banking as a service, the scale of the opportunities provided by embedded finance, where it's already having an impact, partnerships, and actual use cases. Rada, we recently published an ebook powered by Finastra. What is embedded finance? A beginner's guide for brands. As the title suggests, it's very much intended for a non-financial audience. Are we speaking the right language when it comes to explaining the opportunities and the enabling technologies that are driving interest in embedded finance?
There's definitely opportunity to make it clearer, for sure. And the way to think about it is when we are talking to various stakeholders, translate it to what it means for them. So, as an example, if you're talking to distributors, the third-party channels who are offering these financial products, one way to explain to them would be, this would basically help your customer experience as you are trying to sell goods or services to them. So that's one way to describe it. When we are talking to banks, which is another ecosystem participant in this, what is the value for them? They'll get access to third-party distribution channels to offer their products and services. So when we translate that into what it means for them as they are serving their client base, I think that's when it becomes much more easier for people to get their head around and see the value and continue the conversation.
Fantastic. And when, picking up on banking as a service, or BaaS, as we call it for shorthand, it's a crucial enabler of embedded finance. However, embedded finance, banking as a service, they're often used interchangeably. Can you explain in the simplest possible terms, for the broadest possible audience, what is the difference between the two, and how should we look at them?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And the best way to think about it would be one enables the other. Embedded finance is enabled by banking as a service. One way to think about it is embedded finance typically is client facing, and banking as a service is what you might call the intelligent side. Let me give an example. When a customer is trying to make a decision around an elective medical or a dental procedure in doctor's office, and they are offered a 12-month installment plan right in the doctor's office, offered through their systems, and the application is taken through their systems, that is embedded finance, taking the financial products to where the clients are versus the client going out of band to a bank website or a physical branch, etc. So that, in my mind, is embedded finance. Now, underlying the actual financial product is, and the loan is underwritten by a bank, a regulated entity, which is offering that as a service. That is a banking as a service. I think that's the best way to think about it. There are a number of other dimensions, but that's kind of how I would think about it in plain terms.
Fantastic. Plain terms is exactly what we're after here. So when it comes to embedded finance, there are a lot of estimates out there as to what the value of it is, the potential value. Can you speak to what non-financial enterprises, distributors, stand to gain from BaaS-enabled embedded finance? What's in it for them, essentially?
Yeah. At the end of the day, in my mind, the value creation comes from enhancing the experience of the end customer who is, consuming those goods. If we are able to do that, all the ecosystem participants around that end customer will stand to gain value. Specifically about the distributors, if they are able to improve the conversion rate of the sale or a good or a service, that enhances the business value for them. They can improve the customer experience that they're trying to serve. That eventually creates overall economic value and monetization value. So from a distributor's perspective, that is the best way they can think about it, enhancing the customer experience, deepen the products, and thus monetizing that interaction and drive revenues.
Rod, I'd like to pick up on something you just said there, and when you spoke about the participants in the ecosystem, and focus in particular on banks. What benefits are there for financial institutions in embracing banking as a service? In essence, where do they fit into this evolving ecosystem?
Yeah, having spent 26 years in a bank, I can tell also from my personal experience that banks have started to look for alternate non-proprietary channels to acquire new customers, to deepen the relationships with the new products to the existing customer base, service the customers in third-party distribution channels that may not be owned by the banks. And they're doing that for a number of reasons. One is that they get access to new customer base that they're not able to capture through their proprietary distribution channels. They're able to offer goods and services, particularly products like loans, payments. They will provide customer service even in examples like Uber, right? They are able to enable the customers to use their credit cards in a third-party channel like Uber. So from a bank perspective, that is how they see the value broadly in terms of distribution channels.
Thank you. And finally, as part of this video series, we really want to reach and support those organizations that are perhaps earlier on in their understanding of what embedded finance is, what it can do, what value it can bring to them or their end users. Beyond banking as a service, what do you think are the crucial elements that we need to cover? What's the message that we need to get across?
Yeah, I would say translating the broad embedded finance and banking as a service category into what we are doing at Finastra and how we can add value to the ecosystem participants. As an example, when we think about banking as a service, we always have to think about the specific use cases within the banking as a service. They are lending, deposits, treasury as a service, payments, so on and so forth. At Finastra, we are focusing on specifically two use cases, particularly around consumer lending and cross-border payments. And as we continue these conversations, I'd like to unpack that a little bit for our audience so that we can talk specifically about the partnerships that we can continue while continuing to focus on the broad evolution of embedded finance. But it's going to be important as to the so what and where can we partner, what can we do together to actually, at the end of the day, drive value to the end customers and clients and of our partners and of Finastra.
That's fantastic, Radha. Thank you so much for getting us started with explaining what banking as a service is, what it can do, how it's distinct from embedded finance. And I very much look forward to uncovering with you as we go on with the video series, the so what part that you just mentioned. So thank you again for your time today.